Welcome to this week's episode of Listen to Your Coaches. I'm your coach, Mike Wilkins, here with Coach Will Morrill. This week, we're going to dive into the topic of cross-training, the do's, the don'ts, the whys, and the why nots. Will, since I brought us in, why don't you carry us on?
All right, so first things first, what is cross-training? The way we're going to define cross-training right now is training at another gym outside of your home gym, right? So we're not talking about cross-training like, oh, I'm an MMA fighter, but I'm going to do some Ukrainian traditional dance to get better at MMA. No, we're talking about still training MMA,
I see what you're saying.
but just at a different place.
Yes, yeah, okay, so I see what you're saying. Because some people are like, oh, cross-training, like, I'm going to do some, like track workouts.
Right.
Right, no, by cross-training, we mean like training with other teams and or coaches or athletes. So cross-training, it could be at your gym.
Right.
Or it could be at another gym, okay? That's what cross-training is.
Yeah.
All right. So, or that's what we're referring to when we're talking
that's
about
how we're going to
cross-training.
define it.
Is training with people from, outside of your team.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
So should we start off with what are some of the benefits of it or how we think to do it best?
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay.
All right. So I think one of the benefits to it is it gives you a good barometer, right?
Yes.
So let's say that you are you haven't taken your first fight yet and you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. You know what I mean? And maybe you're at a gym where you've got, let's just hypothetically say there's like some guys who have like 7 fights and then a bunch of guys who have no fights. There's like a little bit of a wave there, right? And you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready. There's no guys with like 1 fight. There's no like 0-1s. There's no, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't know where I am. You go to another gym and there's a bunch of guys who are 1-1, 0-1, or whatever. Then you can be like, oh, I'm kind of at this guy's level, and that might give you a little bit of like confidence going into your first fight.
I can see that. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I just feel like you don't need, if you haven't even debuted yet,
Okay, maybe that's a
do
bad
you
example.
need to be cross-training? Right? It's like, oh, I don't know where I am against it. Like, I think you find that out
know
in
what?
the fight then if you don't have that readily available.
That was a
you're at
poor
the point
example.
to be. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Let me give you a better example.
Yeah.
okay?
Give me a better example.
You're a 3-0 pro, okay? But you live in Alaska. Mm-hmm. Okay?
You're nailing it.
And so you've just been starching dudes, right?
Smoking them.
And-
You're the big fish in the little pond, and you need to go find out what other fish are like.
Exactly, because there's a possibility that you're actually like a 500 amateur level, but you've just been fighting bad pros. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So now CFFC's calling you and they're like, hey, we want you to come fight this killer. And you're like, dude, I don't know what level I'm at. So you take a training trip down to, I don't know, California or whatever and go to a legit gym and you start sparring with some of the guys. You're like, oh no, I actually am legit. Or you're like, no, I'm not. I should probably move here. You
Yeah.
know? So like maybe that's a better example of like testing your level, but it's all in the same kind of idea. Is there are times where it might be a good idea to test your level.
So that's a pro of cross training. You get
Right.
to test your level.
Now, I just gave a really bad example. You want to talk about why that would be a dumb idea if you're an 0-0 AME to go to another gym
Yeah.
and waste your time there?
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Well, the first thing I said would be a dumb reason to go because if your coaches can't tell you if you're ready to take your first fight or not,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's already a bad gym. You shouldn't be there
Yeah, it
anyways.
shouldn't.
And also, like, are you so afraid of this first fight that like you need to test your level first and have like a not fight to find out? Like, nah, dude, this isn't for you then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that would be like a bad reason to go.
That's why I jumped into that. 'Cause
And I'm
I didn't
glad
want
you
them-
did,
I didn't
because-
want people like thinking like, oh, that's what I need to do.
Exactly.
Right? You shouldn't do that. Now, with the caveat, like you might be in a situation such as ours where you'll end up cross training before your first fight
Right.
because the homies are going to come in on Saturday and you're definitely going to get paired up with somebody from another school from another team.
100%.
Yeah. Which is like, but like, I don't think it's something you need to like, you can get it done in house. You don't need to go outside.
Especially
to
on
go
our
find
gym,
that.
we're super lucky. Like we're close with a lot of the other good gyms around here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So the Mat Factory, the Academy.
Yeah.
Sometimes the guys from is it American now, Nick Brown,
All American.
All American.
Yeah. All American MMA.
They'll come
Yeah.
up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. All the Yinzer squads there.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So like that's. I mean, I think that's a tremendous benefit of
Yeah,
being
there's a
in
great
Pittsburgh.
barometer of that. Yeah, so let's move into some other like reasons like to cross train. You know, so sometimes like a way that I can look at it. So let's say like I'm working with a handful of our fighters, right? And we're working on specific like series of like maybe I'm like, hey, we're working these cage takedowns, and we're doing some specifics, and I'm working with like you know a group of our fighters on it. Well, if they're gonna go try to implement it in a live situation on each other, it starts to become slightly inauthentic.
Exactly.
Right? Because like everybody is like very aware of like what's happening. So it's a little bit inauthentic. So if you're cross training, right? Like, you know, you're like you can then go check that like on somebody who wasn't in that practice,
Yes,
right?
they're not
And kinda,
expecting that one
like give you like and that gives you a more honest look
Right.
at how this technique works and like and they're doing the same thing. Right? Like they're working on stuff and they can check that on you.
And you can kind of tailor it to a specific person, you know what I mean? So like if you're like, hey, I've been working this I don't know, guillotine or whatever, I know this guy's got great submission defense, let me go to his gym, try it out, find out if it actually like works well or not, you know what I mean? Or you're like, hey, I can't get it on any of the guys here, let me go to this guy who I know doesn't have great submission defense and kind of like build it up a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm definitely more with the former, not the latter.
I agree. I'm just
I feel like doing the latter is kind of like
yeah, that's stupid.
it's kind of lame.
It's
Like, what are you doing?
just go fight at that point.
yeah, just go fight. All
But
right, yeah.
hold on. But what's interesting is we both had the same thing. Is that essentially cross training can be used as a barometer for your level either as a fighter overall or your level for specific techniques. And within who you are as a fighter, like there's good or both of them. There's good and bad ways to do it, and I just outlined both of them. You know what I mean? If you're like, oh, I'm not good at this. Everyone in my gym's good at it, at defending. Let me go try it on someone who's not good. Like that's not a good reason to go.
To stay on the barometer thing about like improvement and stuff, you can also kind of like check it, especially if it's somebody who you might not cross train with like super frequently, right? Like let's say like okay, like I'm sparring like Nick like once every 3 months, right? You can kind of see your development, right?
Yeah.
Which you might not see against your teammates as readily. And like a good example of that I think everybody can relate to is like everybody probably has like a kid in their life, like a nephew, a cousin, your friend's kid or whatever, right? And you don't see that kid every day, right? Like you see that kid like every like 4 months or whatever, and you're like, holy crap, like dude, you got tall, right? But if you saw that kid every day,
it wouldn't
you
be as
wouldn't
dramatic.
notice it as much, right? Or like you have a friend who's like on a weight loss journey, right? And if you're a part of that, you're with that person every day. It's not as like jarring, as when you haven't seen it. And you're like, oh wow, man, you look way different, right? Like so you get that feel like, you know, if you have like maybe like, and this works especially well like with like someone like who maybe is like a little further away, right, to where it's like, hey, we can't really get together every weekend or every other weekend or even monthly might be tough, right? Like I can come out this way like, you know,
a couple times a year,
yeah, you know. So other like, you know, benefits to looking at it. The other thing is as you're getting more towards the top level, like okay, so like for example, like if you were to use like our team for an example, right? Like, you know, like the point we're at now, we have like, you know, some like lower level early entry amateurs, right? But the bulk of our team is like mid amateur career. They're like in the middle of their amateur career. That means they're between their like 3rd to 7th amateur fight, right? And then we're starting to get the top of the pyramid, like the pros at different levels, right? Like the natural growth of a team. So like those at the top, right? It's like, oh, like I need a southpaw, right? It's like, okay, like I need a southpaw who's long. Okay, I need a southpaw wrestler, right? And then we can, you know, start like seeking that out for like specific style of training, right? I need a leg locker, right? You know, and you know, the more further you are out from the middle of the bell curve, the more that becomes like a necessity, right? So it could be a necessity based off of your size, right? Like if we were going to use like, you know, James Padmore, who just recently won a title and has moved away. But like while he's here, it's like, okay, like, dude, you're the biggest dude on the team. By a bit. You know what I mean? So like you need the cross train. You need the cross train. Luckily for us, we don't have that on the small end. We seem to be the land of the little people. Which I like. I like having a little person's team.
The baby weights.
Yeah, because then like, you know, like I can just like beat them up. I'm like, you guys aren't listening to me. Whereas like, like if James doesn't listen to me, like it's just like, come on, dude.
Right, yeah.
Listen
Trust
to
me, it works like
Just
this.
trust me. Yeah, you just gotta listen. Like, right? Like I can't be like, get over here, and then like beat them up. So I do enjoy that.
No, I think this leads to something that's important. Okay, generally speaking, I think that cross training becomes slightly more important the higher level you become.
Yes.
Right? Maybe not even slightly. I think just straight up as a rule, it becomes more important. And kind of what I opened with is like a great example of that. Like if you're an 0-0, or even you have less than 5 AMI fights, right? And you're in a gym that is like a legit gym. Like there's people there who can give you work. Yeah. So even if like, let's say you're the best at jiu-jitsu on your like, or again, not all gyms work the way ours do, but like in our gym, let's say that you're the best MMA amateur at jiu-jitsu, and you're just like smashing all these dudes at jiu-jitsu. Well, you can go with some of the pure jiu-jitsu guys and get that work. Now,
well, that's because we're not just an MMA gym.
Exactly.
You can even do that with striking.
100%.
Right? Like it's like, oh, dude, I'm doing good. All right, well, hop over with Brody.
Yeah. Get around with Donahue. See how that goes for you.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at is like, if you have a legit team and you're like, a lower level guy, you can probably get work within your team. And as you get better and better, and especially as you, like you were talking about too, like have specific skills that need to be refined and specific things that need to be like, defended against, then it makes a lot more sense,
Yeah. Dude, you just got me thinking about like how lucky our fighters are. Like,
dude,
like especially time. Like our mid-tier fighters, like, I would say like our average amateur fighter, as far as like oh, I need to sharpen up some of my jiu-jitsu in certain positions. You're not even top 100 in the gym.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
You're not even top 100, dude.
No.
You're not even top 100. Like, there's so many regular dudes who are going to destroy you.
Yeah.
At jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
100%.
So that's a lot of but like you could look at that as like, oh, a challenge, like I need to get better. Like, quote unquote regular people are better than me. Or, I mean, like we do have people who are dedicated jiu-jitsu athletes, right? Who specialize in that, which you should like, ideally you don't get better than because they're so specialized in it, and I'm doing a good job as a jiu-jitsu coach also, and stuff like that. But you should look at it as like just like a valuable resource.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there any other good
I'm sure they're gonna pop up as we go, but that's like
I've got
what
another
I came
good
in.
one.
Okay,
so another good reason, and again, I think this applies more at higher levels, is if there's a coach that you are specifically seeking out their knowledge in a specific way.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like, let's say you are, you're like, hey, I really want to go see what Tim Welsh, what does he know about stance switching? Because I see Sean O'Malley stance switching all the time. Or, what can Faraz teach me about takedowns? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did he take this Canadian dude who never wrestled and made him one of the best MMA wrestlers of all time? You know what I mean? Like, let me learn that specific like subsystem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you go out there, maybe you get a private lesson with them. You see how they, they're running practice, what things are emphasized. You know what I mean? Like, that I think makes a lot of sense. And then you come back to your home gym with something specific where you're like, hey, when I was out here, this guy who's really good at this was doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z here now and start to like implement that in my game. You know? Mm-hmm. That I think makes a lot of sense. Now, if you go without something, dude, all of this just turned into like degrees of things. That's just everything. Let's say you go to another gym and you're like, oh, dude, I'm a big fan of Dan Henderson. I'm going to go out to Team Quest. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but
I think he's got his own thing now.
Regardless, I'm just thinking of like big camps. I'm a big fan of whoever, and you go to that gym, and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to like train here. It's like that might be useful, and I have a completely separate sub point of when it might be useful. But if you don't have anything in mind, it doesn't necessarily make you better, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you show up, you're the guy from out of town, and you're just like, oh, I'm just here to get better, and they're like, all right, cool, dude, like, train. And like they're not going to show you the good stuff, you know what I mean? Whereas if you come in and you're like, hey, I'm a big fan of your takedown entries or whatever it is, I'm really interested in this, like then they're like, oh cool, like I can show you how this works, so I think that having something specific in mind, and honestly I think that applies for like all of cross training. If you don't have something specific in mind, it's probably not a good idea for you to be cross training.
Right. Do you mean like with a coach or with other like.
Either one. Like you should have something like
Right, I guess yeah, you're right because like every example that we gave was something specific, right? It was like okay, you're working on this, you want to work it on somebody who's not also working on it, so you have that authentic reaction to it.
Also, let me ask you this, okay? So let's say one of our fighters comes up to you, right? Someone, just hypothetically, just to make it like simple, someone who has less than like 4 fights, okay? And they're like, hey, you know, Coach Mike, I was thinking about doing some cross training at X, Y, and Z gym. And you're like, oh, that cool, why, right? And maybe you don't even like, you're just making conversation. And they go, I just thought I'd get some different looks. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
What does that mean?
Right. And they're like, I don't know. I just thought I'd get some different looks.
Right on, brother.
Yeah. Like,
sounds like.
Do you think they're going to get a lot out of that?
No, I don't think they're going to get a lot out of it. Certainly not as if they're like, hey, I'm going to go cross train over at this gym. Why? Oh, because they play a lot of rubber guard there and we don't here. So like, I want to get some feels on that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay. Like, yeah, you go somewhere with a plan.
Exactly.
You know, not just like opened up, like if you want to get the value out of it, you go
that's
with the
what I'm
plan,
saying,
right?
Yeah.
Or are you going like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go check out, I'm gonna go train for a week at American Top Team? Are you doing it like because like you're a fan?
Because you want to get an Instagram picture?
Yeah,
you know
are you
I
mean? A fan? Yeah.
Now here is something that is like almost contrary to what I just said, but it has to be specific, right? Getting a new look. What if your training, right, is becoming stale for some reason, right? Or even as a coach, even your coaching, because I also have like, you know, you can do this as a coach as well. Let's say that you're like, you know what, we've really been doubling down on X, Y, and Z techniques. We've been running our practices in kind of the same way for like, you know, the past 4 months. Like we've just been doing a lot of the same things, right? And maybe you've gotten good growth out of it too, but like you can't stand to run another practice in exactly the same way.
Are you talking about as a coach?
As a coach or as a
dude? During
athlete?
this conversation, while you were talking, I was like, "Is there cross training for coaches?"
Yeah, dude.
You know what I mean? I was like, I kind of want to go somewhere. Like,
you do realize,
yeah.
Okay, how many gyms have I trained at outside of our gym in the past, like since my last fight?
I would say
Like a handful,
1,
a couple.
2. Are you counting Thailand?
Yeah.
4.
The number doesn't actually matter.
I'm
right?
gonna say 4.
The fact is, I've trained at other gyms, right? Do you think
4
I'm
of
doing
them.
that to become a better fighter?
No.
No, it's because I'm picking things up as a coach. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like, for example, okay, I just did a seminar at the academy. I don't know when this is coming out, but
5.
like,
5.
I don't even know if that's the real number or not. But
I was thinking like CSA, Henzo's New York, 2 Thailand schools, and then the academy.
sounds about right. There might be something. I don't know. That doesn't matter. Point is, right? When I went and did that seminar at the academy, right? Like, you know, with Micah B, awesome seminar. Shout out to the academy. Shout out to Micah B. But you know, like I've been around striking for so long, you're not going to show me something that I've never seen before, right?
Right, yeah.
You might show me something and explain it in a way I haven't thought of before, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is really valuable to me, right?
For
You might have a
sure.
subsystem that is exceptionally valuable to me.
Yeah.
Valuable to me. You know what Micah B said?
What do you say?
This was like the best thing I took
Tell me
away
what he
from it.
said.
And for him, this might just be like a little throwaway. You know what I mean? Like just so not important, right? He was like, because I'm always like complaining with our guys. I'm like, yeah, when you fake a teep, you got to bring it really, really high. Like bring your knee up. And I'm always focused on that knee. Bring your knee up. Show them, right? We want them to see it. And sometimes they'll just be like, Micah B said, when you feint the teep, show the bottom of your foot. And I was like, bro, now you can't mess it up.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean? Because
yeah.
if you don't bring it up high enough, you're not going to see it. And again, I don't know if he made that up. I don't know if, like on the spot, I don't know if that's a cue that he uses a lot. But just for me to be able to steal that cue, I was
Yeah.
like, right there, that makes it worth it for me cross-training
Yeah.
as a coach. You know what I mean?
Dude, I have like that. I just had that same experience in January training with Cody Hamraw and Dave Esposito at the Edge when we took a couple of the fighters out. We did a pod on that trip. But like same thing where I was like, oh, like you know what I mean? Like I learned coaching.
Yeah,
There.
yeah. And whether it's cues, whether it's subsystems, or you know something else that's super valuable. Okay, so I took over our program completely in 2019, right? Mm-hmm. Shortly after that, I went out to CSA for the first time for one of their coaches' clinics, and it's that barometer. I just didn't know. I was like, I think I'm a good coach. You know, I think I know a lot about striking, but like, what if I show up and everyone's just like, oh, dude, you're a noob. You don't know anything, you know? And what if what I've been running here is like not good? Like, I just don't know. Dude, I show up. the number one thing I took away from that was just an extreme sense of confidence, because they're telling like, listen, if you want to run a successful program, you have to be doing this, 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 this. And I'm like, dude, I'm already doing most of that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Warren told me to do that years ago. Like, we're good. You know?
Dude, that's the best scenario. That happened when we were out at the Edge too. So Cody and Dave, they're working with them on some takedown stuff, and like some of the early stuff that they're doing, like the guys after they're looking over at me, they're like, this is like literally word for word like what you said and like how you explained it and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, so it gave me confidence. I was like, okay, you know, because these dudes are like, you know, they're coaching UFC athletes and stuff. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, like, you know, I have full trust in like their stuff. So it gave me confidence, and then to build on, I started learning stuff, right? And I'm like, yo, it's best case scenario. I got to walk out of here. Like, if I just came in here and learned stuff, like, that's great, right? You know, very, very good. But like, I got to build a level of confidence. Like, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm doing things right. Like, I'm putting out good information, right? And then I got to grow as well.
Yeah,
you know,
I think as a coach, cross training, you should be searching for three things.
Well, I had the same thing as a fighter. When I was fighting, I had the same thing on my cross-training journeys, right? I would spar with somebody who maybe was at a level higher than me, and I would do well, right? And I would leave there with a little bit more confidence, right? Also, I'm getting different sparring, right? Like, they have a different style than what I'm used to or whatever. So I'm also able to grow from the different, like, things thrown at me,
right?
You know what I mean? You know, and I've had it work the other way too. I've had in the same day, I've had my confidence grow in one area and go down in the other. There was a certain.
Are you thinking about a certain Sean Brady?
No. That was a whole different story. So I'm not gonna say the name of this fighter, but this fighter was in the UFC, right? And I held my own in the striking department a lot better than I had anticipated. And then in the grappling department, I certainly knew I had an edge. And the edge was not nearly as steep as I thought. You know what I mean? Like, I did a lot better striking than I expected.
Yeah.
And he did a lot better grappling than I expected.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was all in the same day.
Showing you that the margins at the top are very small.
Yes. Yeah.
But real quick, because I think this is important, but I do think we should move on from it. I think as a coach, if you're going to go cross-train, right, which I think is valuable sometimes, and again, we'll talk about frequency later, I think you should be looking for three things. One is just straight up new stuff, right? So in jiu-jitsu, it might be a new technique. In striking, it's probably not going to be a new technique. If you're learning, like, straight up, you're like, oh, I didn't know you could throw an elbow. Like, you probably shouldn't be a striking coach. But learning new things, whether it's technique or subsystems or just like ways to think about it. So you're like, oh, I actually aim it like this, or I do something slightly different. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. I understand this better, right? You're learning new things, right?
Yes.
There's that. There's the confidence building. Like, oh, hey, I just went to the best gym in the world and they're running it pretty much how I'm running it. Okay, cool. We're on the right path. And then three is to learn new ways to teach it. So again, picking up cues, picking up the structure of a practice or a training block for, like, I don't know, a week or a month or whatever. And you're like, oh, cool, I can ramp the intensity like this and whatever. I think as a coach, that's like,
dude, that brings
valuable.
A whole lot. So Warren's been teaching a leg lock block up in Zealy, like, taking over my advanced class, you know, to teach a specific block, and I'm taking the block, you know. And there were two things that happened during the block, which to me were like huge game changers. Right. And I talked to Warren about it. I was like, these aren't new, right? And he's like, no, they're not new. And I'm like, okay. And Sean Williams says a lot, maybe it was Pat Santoro. Either two great coaches.
Yeah.
One of them said that a lot of techniques are caught, not taught. I think it was Sean, now that I think about it. Now I have no idea. Whatever, they're caught, not taught. Meaning, like, I can teach you can teach me this teep Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the next 6 months. But one day, it's just going to hit me right. And then I'm going to learn it, right? There were two things that just, like, it was the right time for it. You know? And I was like, dude, you've been teaching me probably this type of stuff for the past 8-9 years. But, like, this cue that you've probably said 100 times, today I heard it.
You know what I mean? Clicked.
Yeah, I heard it today. Like, I've listened to it before, but today I heard it.
Right.
You know? And, like, you know, so sometimes, like, you might be, you know, I might be, like, and, like, maybe the way they said it, I heard it.
Right.
You know? And it's no different than Warren was doing. Warren was having us do the same move, but I heard it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's interesting too. The caught not taught, great example of this. So Brody, right? Excellent striker. Before going to Thailand to train, was already an excellent striker, right? Very good at kicking. But when he came back from Thailand, his kicks were unbelievably good, right?
What happened?
Well, one, when you're training in Thailand, like 90% of the strikes you're throwing are going to be round kicks to the body, right? So you're just getting reps on reps on reps, right? And also because it scores so heavily in Muay Thai, like they're experts at exactly that. So you have coaches who can give you the correct cues and have been doing this their entire lives, right? And you're next to like the best there is, you know what I mean? Like you might be in the same ring as Pech Morcott or Ritawada, you know?
Rich water.
So if you're next to that dude and he just hit 20 perfect kicks in a row, it just like starts to seep in. You know what I mean? You start catching that technique. So when Brody came back, dude, his kicks were unbelievably good, you know? And I think that's a good example of caught not taught.
Caught not taught. All right, so we go ahead. You got some more?
I got one other thing that I think is good, but again, it's kind of got to be specific. If you, and I was kind of leading up to this, if your training feels stale and you don't want to train and you need some fun, that's a valid reason.
Valid reason.
But there's qualifiers, you know what I mean? One, you should be going somewhere that's like legit, so it's not like, oh well, you know, like my legit fight training is not fun for right now, I'm gonna go to this boxer-sized gym. Like, no, that's not gonna work out for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And two, like you have to like legitimately have like, I don't want to say exhausted, but like you have to like have used up a lot of the resources at your home gym, right? So if some, like let's say we got a kid who comes to the gym and he's like, oh, you know, I want to learn to fight, and he's there for 4 months and he's like, I just feel like mixing it up a little bit. I'm gonna go to another gym. We're like, oh, why? Like specifically, he's like, I just like kind of want like some fun. And you're like, dude, you've been here for 4 months. You haven't even tapped into like the fun stuff yet. You know what I mean? Like, then it's not really worth it. But I'm just thinking about like me as a coach. Like that's one of the things about like going to Thailand, right? Or going to that Micah B seminar. You know, it's just like, first of all, I'm not teaching. I'm not responsible for anyone, so I can just like relax in that way. And two, like I'm having fun. It's like reigniting the love of martial arts and striking and everything. So I think that can be valuable.
I was just talking about that this morning with Parker. So I was training with him this morning, and I was talking about like rolling with like one of the other guys, and I was like, yeah, they're really good on top, right? So like I made sure I was on top,
right?
You know, so I had good round because they weren't on top of me, and then you know it was like kind of contrary to like a growth mindset, which is like, all right, well if he's good on top, like let's say like I'm a lot better than this person, so like if I get on top, I'm just gonna like kind of like have my way, right? But if they get on top of me, then I will be challenged.
Right.
Well, I should use them for that challenge. I should go underneath, right? And I was like, but sometimes, like, you just want to win.
Yeah.
You know, you just want to, like, because it's fun. Like, you just want to go out there, just want to have some fun.
Yep.
And, like, that's almost as important as getting better.
It sure
because
is.
it keeps you in it to get better. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that really hindered my growth as a boxer is I took it so seriously and, like, worked so hard and just grinding that, like, you start to lose a little bit of that spark and some of that motivation. And then the motivation becomes harder and then that grinding becomes harder. And it's just like this wheel that's slowing down, you know, and, like,
all right, so we hit some really good reasons to cross train. All right, let's talk about some like things that are probably not ideal for your cross training.
You mean like bad reasons or like
here goes.
or how to do it wrong?
Okay, both. So here goes like one of the things. If you're cross training too much, you're not cross training, right?
Yeah,
you're just training with a bunch of different people. Yeah, you're training at a bunch of different gyms. Like a good example of it would be like, dude, if I only see like okay. Some people may think like I have some favorites, right? And they're not wrong. Okay, I have some favorites, and it just so happens that all my favorites happen to be the people I'm around a lot more, you know? And my favorites seem to get a lot better than my not favorites. And I wonder if it's because they train with me 5 times a week instead of once or twice.
And let me ask you this. Did you go make sure you're like, oh, I'm going to grab this guy 5 times a week, or do they come to you?
They come to me, right? Which is what like makes like in this instance, like I'm the coach, right? So like it's what makes me want to help you, right? Is like I see you going out of your way for me or going out of your way to learn from me. That means, okay, you want to learn from me.
Right.
So I want to teach you, right? And not like in an inauthentic way. Like,
right. No,
I just want to teach you
legitimately-
more,
yeah.
you know? And I also see you more. so I can teach you more, right? I now have, 7 hours a week with you as opposed to 1.5.
Right.
So we're able to like think about that. Like if you come and you train with me 2 days a week, right? You're with me 2.5 hours a week. Okay. So that's 10 hours in a month. You know what I mean? Whereas some of these people are getting those 10 hours in 1 week.
Yep.
So they're training your month in a week, if you're looking at like picking up off of my technical
Right.
acumen, and stuff like that. So like, it's just like, they're more present, they're more available to the coaching. They're able to learn from my coaching at a more rapid rate also because I'm able to adjust immediately, and things like that. So like, I think like no matter who your coach is, and I'm not saying like, oh, come have me be your coach, right? Like latch on to somebody, better to have somebody like you got to invest in them for them to invest in you.
Yeah, it's better to have one head coach who really cares about you than to have a bunch of coaches who just, you're a guy who shows up to their gym sometimes.
Exactly.
The other thing is like, obviously they're going to invest more in you the more you invest in them, but also like, I'm just thinking about my systems specifically. It's like I have very specific systems, subsystems within that, and very specific language that goes into all of those, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, sure, I can help. If you come through once a month, I could like help sharpen something up. But if you want the best out of me, then you need to learn what the prerequisites are.
Yeah,
and
if you want to
build onto it, you know what I mean?
If you want to get the value that I can provide, you need to be there.
You need to learn the system.
If you want to just come grab a trick here and there, then like I might have a trick for you here and there, right? But that's what you're getting if you're only training with a coach like every so often, is you're just going to go try to pick up their tricks. You're not they're not training you.
Right.
They don't have the ability to train you because you're not there.
Exactly. They can teach you techniques. They're not going to teach you concepts.
Right, yeah. And I mean, like, do you really think you can learn this stuff in one practice? Do you think you can learn it in 10 practices?
Right.
Like, any coach will tell you, like, dude, like, it's like time and time and time, right? If you go talk to any coach and be like, hey, who are your, your best 3 athletes of all time, right? And it's like, okay, what are some, like, did any of them only train with you, like, only here and there?
Right, yeah.
And they'd be like, I wouldn't claim them as my athlete if that was the case, right? Because that's the other thing, right? It's like, all right, well, if I coach you 1 day a week, am I your coach?
Right.
I don't really feel like I am. So then, if you're at other places, other days, right? Like, I don't want to step on their toes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, that's probably your coach. You know what I mean? And then, like, so like, you need to have a lot of time in with the coaching staff that you're ideally choosing.
Right. And dude, I didn't even think about that, but that's 100% like a valid thing as well. Is like, on, I don't know, Saturdays when like we have like all these great fighters coming in, like I'm trying to think of like a good example of this. If someone comes in from another gym on a Saturday and they're sparring, right, and like I'm running drills and like they're messing something up, I might be like, oh hey, like this is kind of how I do it, you know what I mean? Like I want to share things with them, but I'm not going to go so in depth because of what you said. I don't want to step on their coach's toes, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to overstep my bounds here and potentially influence them in a way that's detrimental to their system.
Right, because they might be doing something like that might ruin. Like that might hinder some of their progress that their coach is making, because sometimes when you're making progress, like it's not like on this perfect line, right? Like, so sometimes like you got your training wheels on, right? And like we're about to take those off, but now you're starting to pedal backwards all of a sudden. Where'd you get that? Oh, well, Coach Will told me this. Oh, well, you know what? Pedaling backwards does work in his like style,
right? Yeah,
style, like type of thing.
And stylistically, that matters so much. Like, can you imagine if you are like I don't know, an outside Tommy Hearns type boxer, right? And then you go to train with Customato and he's teaching you peekaboo, but you only do it for 1 day because you're just cross training. You're just in there, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, now I'm just gonna do this the whole time. And like you're messing up your own game, you know. So if you're constantly doing that, you just have like the worst of everyone's game together, you know.
Because you need to isolate, pinpoint on that. So like you can definitely over cross train. You can over cross train outside of coaching as well, like into the fact that like you're no one's teammate as well, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because when you're cross, there's a different level of like, I would say, a bond between like teammates and like cross training partners, and then obviously your cross training partners are more teammates to you than strangers and stuff. But there's like just like a different level. You know what I mean? So like you're just everybody's cross training teammate, right?
Exactly.
So like you're almost like you're kind of homeless.
Right, yeah. Like
Yeah.
no teammate's gonna pull you aside and be like, "Hey, dude, all of drilling, you messed this, and this up. Let me fix it real quick." No one's doing
Oh
that.
yeah, because
you
it's
know?
not their place.
Yeah, no,
You
exactly.
know, and since it would be your teammate's place, but you have no teammates. You know, so it's not their place, and same reason, like you have no coach, right? Like so, like you know, like I'll pick and stuff, but I'm not gonna be like, hey, like be here at 9 tomorrow. We're gonna do this, or hey, make sure you're here Thursday at 6:30. We're gonna work on this, like you know what I mean. And then you're not gonna get a laid out plan, like all right, we're gonna focus on back control for a couple months because you seem to be getting there, but you're losing your chest to back connection. I think that's the low hanging fruit right now. And then like you know, obviously you're struggling on bottom guard, but like you know, one fish at a
Right.
time, you know.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and also like you don't know what the culture is at that gym. Like you might be like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna show up, get a little light training in today, and they're like, we're doing our hardest sparring right now.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like, oh, are you gonna get hurt? You know what I mean? Like,
And also, like, it'd be incredibly inappropriate for you to ask them to adjust their plan of
Right, for
practice
you.
for you.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, okay, it's like, all right, well, it's like, oh, I was hoping to get some grappling rounds in. Dude, it's boxing day.
right. Yeah, it is what
You
it
know?
is.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, those are some, like, you know, definitely negatives
Mm-hmm.
that can come from, like, over cross training, you know? Yeah.
You got any other like specific things, or should we wrap it up?
I think we should wrap it up, but like, you know, there's been a lot of like, I guess like a lot of the stuff that we were talking about is like when you're more towards the top, you need it a little more. And I think about like, you know, like towards like the top of my career, you know, where like, it's like, okay, who was my training partners? It was like Dom Mazzata, Nick Brown, right?
Right.
Two dudes from other teams, Mark Cherico, right? But Mark's been like my training partner forever, you know, Kama, right? And stuff. Kama, see, that's the other thing too, is like these dudes, like almost like those guys, it almost feels like it's not cross training.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's like we're
You
just
know,
kind of one big gym.
It's like yeah, like when I talk about like grown like coming up training with like Justin Steve and all them,
Right.
like that didn't like Joey Holt, that didn't feel like cross training
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Those are your teammates.
Yeah, it's like we were like it was a different era then.
Yeah,
Like there wasn't as many of us, so that's all we had.
Right.
You know. But yeah,
But so to just wrap it up nicely, okay?
put a bow on it.
Put a bow on it, okay? As a fighter, what are the best reasons to be cross trained?
You've exhausted a lot of your resources. You're at the level where you need something specific.
I think that applies to everything. Everything's got to be specific.
Yeah.
I think judging your barometer as a fighter, I think judging your barometer at specific techniques is like
And that's judging your barometer if you can't do it with the resources you have.
Exactly.
Right? Because if you don't need, also, it's like it's got to happen at the right time.
Yep.
You know, like I can't stress enough that like young fighters don't need to be doing it. You know what I mean? Like you're not there, like don't get too big for your britches.
I think
you're
you
not there yet.
You said it best. You have to have, and not necessarily fully exhausted everything, but you have to have like gotten through a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have to have like really squeezed a lot out of your current training situation in order to make some cross training worthwhile. You know what I mean? I think also again, if you're at a certain position, maybe the fun of it. If
Yes.
that's specifically what you're trying to go for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you're like, I just want to go to Thailand, just see what it's like there. You know what I mean? Hey, cool. That's
Yeah,
the fun
for
of it,
sure.
to learn about the culture of it. That's a valid reason.
Yeah.
But I think to wrap it all up is it's worth it when you've one, exhausted or come closer to exhausting your resources, and two, you have something very specific in mind. I would
Yes.
say those. I could boil it all down to those two criteria.
Yeah, I think that's really great.
And
You know
then
what I mean?
what would be some either bad reasons or wrong ways to cross train?
You want an unspecific different look. You just think like that like being around these people is gonna like make you like better, like you know what I mean, like I don't know, you just need people to buy into you, and the best way to get people to buy into you is for you to buy into them.
Right.
You know what I mean? For you to be there, right? Like I can't buy into somebody who, you know,
You don't see.
I can't, like, you know. And then do you want me to spend time with you over like someone who I see 5 days a
Right.
week, right? Like why do you deserve my time more than them? Oh, well, because I don't get to see you that much, so I need this time now. No, they earned my time. They earned my time, and also my time goes to who I want it to go to.
Yeah.
You know.
So if we had to wrap it up, you would say cross training too much and potentially too early are probably the two big pitfalls.
Too much, too early. Make sure you buy into a coaching staff and a system. Yeah, I mean, like that's pretty much it. And use cross training for the value of it, and not the hindrance of it, right? Like there's tons of value in cross training as long as you're using it for the
you should be
value.
getting better because of your cross training,
Yes.
not despite it.
Yeah. Because over cross it will stagnate you, right?
Sure will.
Next thing you know, you're just a sparring guy.
Yep.
Yeah, you're just like, why haven't? Oh, you're really tough, but you haven't got better in a while.
You're the sharpest white belt there is.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, that about wraps it up. All right, another good episode of Listen to Your Coaches, and we will catch you guys next time.